Welcome to Sacred Masculinity today. Today we have Nathan, Maurice and Ian here. We're going to talk about what it is to be awakened, the awakening process, enlightened,
how do you know
awareness, whatever that, yes.
So Alex did ask who feels awakened and what is it to be awakened in our view.
Who feels awakened?
Who feels? So the question was, are you awakened in essence, that we started with this sacred masculinity the other night? And what is it to be awakened? And that was the theme.
It was indeed.
And I think, Nathan, you wanted to, because it was only a small group and it was quite a intense and profound discussion, and we were able to question into each other around that too. So to bring it to this space where we could then record it and maybe talk it through a bit more as well, and had time to reflect on it, I think, as well.
Yep.
I found also interesting when you posed that question, the re-invitation to it today as well. So can I sort of just comment from what was happening and what was arising, and then rather than going,
I'm not
this is
say,
what I think.
No, Maurice, you can't.
Well, you might want to say, but I wanted to say what I
No, you
say.
go for it.
Yeah.
I thought it was
Remember I said I've become a man of few words at the moment.
It was a beautiful, that session the other night was a beautiful, it wasn't so much people gave their versions, it's like it was a rolling discussion where we went from one position through to another. It's like we learnt that night what it is or where we were.
It was an unfolding.
An unfolding? I don't know how to put that into words. I'm not the wordsmith.
A questioning into what was unfolding.
Yep. It was beautiful. As it went around,
to this.
the answers came out for me.
These static things, which I do like about that type of meeting.
Yes.
It's a bit of a challenge when you've got
too many people.
Yeah, it can be.
You lose each other, and now we're down a rabbit hole of a conversation, which is still beautiful in a sense.
And the night goes long.
Very long, yeah.
But that's what I did love about it. It was beautiful.
Maybe we need to put limits, put number caps on it.
Well, someone did, and it happened.
First day.
It might happen after the 17th.
First day.
That's not a discussion.
Yeah, it could, maybe. Anyway.
Now we're going to go through to the 5th, and it'll all be good.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We can sit down and have those conversations all the time. I really liked what you said, and it was good that we got some clarification on it, because I think, once again, the way that we read the questions, the way we interpret it, and then the way that we then speak to it can offer a different interpretation to somebody else's, because they've read it in a different way.
Yeah, for sure.
So, being awakened was a destination, a state, rather than an awakening process. So I guess the journey was the awakening process to this perception that now I'm awakened. I've achieved this.
Yeah.
I can call myself awakened.
Yeah.
And I think the conversation was sort of going, well, there could be an identity that's associated to that, and when we have the act of identifying, then that could be quite ego consciousness based. However, in saying that, in each and every moment, can I awaken to the moment? And the beautiful example that you gave when I inquired into you, and then you noticed there's an egoic response, but you were awakened to the egoic response.
Yeah.
And so in that moment, there was an awakening or a state of awakened awareness to something, maybe, to an experience, or to an arising, to a phenomena that had occurred within your experience.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really nice one way of looking at
I think it's beautiful.
awakening process, that it's always happening, that potentially there isn't this
an awakened
or even enlightened. I don't know, but because then I think the question of enlightenment then came into it.
Mm.
Is the awakening process leading you to enlightenment. But even that, if we then say, oh, now I'm awakened, now I'm enlightened,
Yep.
then I'm still using it as a as a destination. So all we've done is replace the word.
Yeah.
You know.
The paradox in this is that the things that I, because I go there and research stuff, the thing that I keep hearing from people is that an awakened person wouldn't claim they're awakened.
Yeah,
Because I wouldn't go, I'm awakened, because then that's coming from that egoic place.
sure. And from that, because it's interesting, because I said, yeah, I believe I'm awakened.
Mm.
Yeah. What am I awakened to? Well, I could say that there's an awareness of awakening to the moment.
Mm.
Doesn't necessarily place an identity that I am an awakened
Yeah.
being.
Yep.
So I think once again, the words
Yeah.
Yep.
and if we get stuck on words,
Yep.
then we identify with them. So that's maybe there's a bit of a little trapdoor
Yep.
with that as well.
I mean, and to explain it, we can't get away from words, because that's how we're communicating in this form.
Yes.
And words are identities and
Mm.
labels created by the ego.
Mm.
So we can only explain it as best you can using the words we can, but
which causes
yes,
potential egoic attachment
Yeah.
to it. So it's a bit of a tricky subject
Exactly.
to talk about when saying, well, in not saying that there's no ego,
yeah.
because I think ultimately we're bound
Well, ultimately,
to
the
it.
process,
In
the process of
necessity, yes.
awakening and becoming enlightened is to transcend the ego. Because when it's the whole
Maybe.
monkey tail thing, and then we become light beings. So we're moving through the densities from
Yeah.
more solid rock
Sure.
to eventually to be enlightenment means to become light beings when we leave this body, but we're existing in the spirit world or energy world.
Or does it? Or is it?
Well, I thought that was the process of going from, for the law of one, and that's what Ra was. They're these energy beings.
Yeah, we can look at that, and
Mm.
we could also look at the Buddha was, in a sense, enlightened.
Mm.
He didn't stop being a human, though.
I don't know, after he died.
Well, after he
Yeah,
died.
yeah,
But
yeah.
So are we saying that, I need to die for me to become, I need to be this full light body for me to be enlightened?
That's a good question, because I do feel that you can be enlightened and then come back to this
Yeah.
body and then remember eventually your enlightenment, if you like, or that phase that which the Buddha was.
Yeah, and
then can help,
Yeah.
but you're still within a dimensional reality or in a body, but
yeah,
with the
knowledge.
expression or knowledge of
it's
an enlightenment.
Jesus and they had to decide to come back to take the risk of
Yeah.
lowering their vibration
Mm.
to sit in this physical form to be able to
Yeah.
teach people.
So then,
So Buddha did the same thing.
potentially we've all enlightened, just not seeing it yet.
Well, we're all on a process of varying levels of awakening.
Yeah. Well, that's I guess what we suggested the other night, where it's
some
we're
people
awakened
still-
to this moment, and each and every moment we're becoming aware of or awakening to something more, or unlearning, unstripping, which awakens us to
'Cause
more of
it's-
the potential possible.
It's the process of evolution.
So I'm sort of just questioning to maybe get some clarification that we can reach a state, not the state.
Yeah.
A state of enlightenment whilst being in this physical body. It's
Yeah.
not that I need to transcend. And when we talk about transcending the body, it's not that the body is left behind and I'm this light being, because we're already the light being. So maybe the enlightenment process is to recognise that you are consciousness having a human experience, and that you do. And how's this one to try on, that I can be enlightened and still be attached.
Mm.
I can be enlightened and still have my ego
Yeah.
identify with things.
Yes. Why not?
Yeah, it's not a either or.
That's right.
It's
Where are the rules?
and or.
Yep.
It's and or both.
Yep.
Yeah. So maybe the process of enlightenment, the process of awakening, is to remember. because we're not trying to get to a state because we already are that.
Yep.
So can I just become aware that I already am that? I'm not striving towards something. I'm just remembering, and as I'm remembering, I'm then letting go of the illusional attachments that continue to arise within me.
Yep.
Yeah.
This is very pretty. I like
Completely, yeah. So it's the letting go and surrender of the stuff.
And the surrender is one
It's
of
the
keys
golden
to
Buddha
it.
story.
Yes, yeah.
And in essence, then too, it's a bit strange because we've just suggested that you can have attachments, but then I guess in each of these moments that we realise we
You let go
probably
of the
do have
attachment.
less attachments.
Yes.
So yeah,
Circular around in
Yeah,
circles there.
yeah.
So I
don't
think
know.
I think it's a different way of attaching. It's the way of
Yeah, that's-
attachment.
that's-
Yeah.
yeah.
So currently the
That's a good
attachment
one,
is
yeah.
the attachment is out of fear, or
Yeah.
it's the egoic attachment,
Yep.
which is I'm avoiding pain or I'm chasing pleasure.
Mm.
And so then you can still have attachments, and so that person or thing will leave, but then there's none of that trying to hold on
Yep.
to or
Yep.
resist or
Yep.
that sort of stuff. So you can still have that, let's use the word connection then, to those people in this
Beautiful.
existence, but when they leave, there's none of that
Yep.
suffering.
Yep.
You can still have sorrow,
Yep.
but not suffering with the
Mm.
sorrow.
Yep.
So I think that's that process of awakening and enlightening.
Very
Mm.
nice.
How's that for words?
It's very pretty.
Yeah.
Mm.
And I think that's where it's, and on the way here, I was actually, it's a really interesting story. I was thinking about my father's death. I don't know why it came up.
Mm.
Because it happened.
No, it hasn't happened. Well,
No.
it has.
Yeah, well,
it will.
you know
Well,
what I
and
mean.
I
Yeah.
don't know why. And I often thought, what it was like. And I had the feeling of sorrow, but of happiness at the same time. Of that, well, he's transcendent, and it's not like I'm ever going to lose him because quantum entanglement.
Yeah.
Is still around. So, it was a beautiful moment for me that I was still able to feel. So I think that sometimes we think that without the attachment we won't feel, but we still feel, but there's the lack of suffering.
Mm.
Feeling the gap.
Beautiful.
Because I still want to be able to love. It's not like we lose.
Well, it's the ultimate,
Yeah.
isn't it? Like
Yeah.
even if where I have been, love is
Yeah.
is a thing.
Because
it is
sorrow is still love. Because
Yes.
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
loss.
Well, sorrow is
I
probably
feel the loss of this loved person beside me.
it's
But it's
something
still
that this
love.
body shows us that
Mm.
it's an emotion. I don't know if it's just here in this dimension or this density, or whether it's in other. I presume, I don't know,
Yeah.
but maybe it isn't in some far off densities. Maybe it's not a thing. I don't know, but yeah, obviously here it's a thing.
And I think through like the teaching of Joe Dispenza, if you look at what awakening possibly could be, is that you're able to return to your homeostasis much quicker,
Yeah, that makes
rather than
sense.
stay down here and,
Yep.
and wallow in
Absolutely.
suffering. And you can go, okay, that was a beautiful moment, experienced it, and come back.
Yeah.
And same with the high, you come back. So maybe you do that, like the gazelle runs away from the animal and forgets it doesn't have this psychological trauma of almost died.
Yeah, no,
which humans do.
Yeah.
And so maybe we get kind of moved back to that. To
Well,
some
it is the
degree.
emotions. I read some studies where they looked at that, and the animals can go from simp to parasympathetic,
Much quicker than
like
us,
that.
yeah.
It's the emotions and the imprinting of that trauma in our sympathetic nervous system that we go back and,
And
we
we've got our-
relive.
Yeah.
But maybe through the great gurus and all those people that watch people go through the emotions, and they're like, Ram Dass or whatever,
Yeah.
go, oh, you're on that trip, cool, go have that trip now, come
Yeah.
back and see me when you're off that
Yeah.
trip. That's okay, but
Yeah.
I'll wait for you. I'll wait. Oh, you're back now? All right, cool.
Yeah.
How was
Yeah.
that trip? That was
Yeah,
cool?
yeah.
All right.
Mm.
Now you're back here. All right, let's keep going.
And it's because we evolved to have this beautiful prefrontal cortex
Mm.
that's kind of created that. The animals don't have that. To continue to relive that experience
Mm.
in our minds.
Mm. Project the past into the future.
Yeah.
And then keep us safe.
So
It's
essentially,
amazing, hey?
Essentially, we're transcending, if you like that word, that's the word we use.
Transcending.
Our prefrontal cortex ability to continue to predict the future based on the past.
Yeah, because it's a bit of a it's a wonderful,
amazing
It's an
tool.
amazing gift to have
Mm.
that we can have imagination and visualization and
Mm.
project ourselves through time.
Mm.
But it can really fuck you up.
Yeah,
as well.
It is.
Beautiful tool, horrible
So
master.
that's the evolution.
Yeah.
And so even all those
Mm.
animals behind us will evolve
yeah.
or die out.
Yeah.
Because I was watching some paleoanthropology the other day, and there was a species that branched off with us, and their brain didn't develop, and they died off.
Sure.
And whereas our brain expanded, and because it expanded, we were able to spread across the world because we were able to, I know how to survive in this environment. I can think with my prefrontal cortex and create
Yeah.
whatever. And so the prefrontal cortex is evolution
Yes.
to have a spirituality. And as we found out with the Egyptians, they weren't living long enough. So even though we had this magical prefrontal cortex, they
Yes.
weren't living long enough to even become aware.
That's right. They were still.
So
They was caught up in the ego.
Mm.
Yeah.
Consciousness
Not in the
of
wisdom
safety
age.
and survival.
Yeah.
Post 35 years.
That's right, and I think we were talking about this earlier on that when and even from Erickson's what does he call it? The stages of life. You get to
Mm.
55 to
Oh.
75 is generativity,
Yeah.
where you want to give back
Yep.
to.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think Ram Dass was talking about within some of the ashrams, they would look at particular stages of life, and when you got to 60, you would be cared for by
Mm.
the younger,
Mm.
and they would just let you go
Yep.
because they saw the value in you just being you and sharing the wisdom that
Yep.
you'd found.
Yeah.
I think we've lost that.
Definitely.
now.
But yeah, if you look at it in like Australian Aboriginal communities, that the grandparents raise the child, but then when that child gets to adulthood, it's their responsibility to look after the grandparents.
Yeah, right.
That it's then a role reversal. Oh, well, you're now needing and then that's where the responsibility comes, and it just
you'd have
keeps.
that-
It's a circular.
That's a
thing.
physical responsibility, but the wisdom would come.
Well, that's why.
Mm.
Then the grandparents are continuing to share the wisdom,
Yeah.
and we were talking about that
With the
today.
children.
Yeah, with the children,
It's coming.
and
We're talking
they
about
look
that.
after the children while the
parents.
adults are potentially hunting.
Yeah. And so there's that. You never, and I was talking about that today when we had chatting with Josh, is that you become your responsibility physically diminishes because your body,
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
but your knowledge and wisdom and intellect is what is then.
But then, can you see where
yeah.
we've gone wrong? And the wisdom
Yeah.
is not looking after the children and giving
Right.
children wisdom.
Exactly.
Now
Yeah.
it's the adults that are giving the children whatever
Whatever they can.
they can.
Because they're doing all the other bits and pieces.
So we've lost the wisdom
Yeah,
for
it's
that
completely-
generation.
That's why we're completely disconnected with how, and that's why we have all these aged people with all this wisdom sitting in a nursing home, getting depressed because their value to society
Yes.
is not
Yeah.
is going. You can't do anything physical.
And prior to Ram Dass's departure, he went on a crusade and writing, a lot about this, how society has disappeared. What are you guys doing? We need to actually embrace this and do something about it. Mm.
Yeah. And even when you see, my mother's in an aged care facility, you're just going there to die, basically.
Yeah.
But we took our grandson in, and the way that they all lit up,
Oh,
Yeah, right.
so there seems to be this real symbiotic connection
Yeah.
between the two already. So, it's saying this is actually supposed to happen. Yeah. And we create so much separation.
Yeah.
And it's interesting when you think about those. So children haven't had all the shit put on them yet,
No.
and then the older people have probably awakened a little
And
bit
they've
more,
let go
and
of
they're
their
finally
shit.
going, "Yeah, we can actually connect with this kid because we're on the same level now."
Yeah.
And you are all in the middle here, still sorting
Just
out
let
your
the
shit.
adults go and learn.
Yes.
Yeah. Do. We're just going to sit.
It's a good graphic.
Yeah,
Good
I just
story.
thought that there. I was
Yeah.
like, oh, yeah, these people, they're almost, well, they say, you come into your life having to have your
Eternal.
ass wiped.
And
You're going out having to have your
that's
ass
it,
wiped.
that's
And,
it. They're just bigger nappies.
but they're basically,
Yeah.
it's that,
Yes.
on the same wavelength again.
Or-
they can
or is it
communicate.
that?
Is it?
Yeah, it's probably that, sorry,
The bell
yeah.
curve, whatever it is.
Sorry. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Flip it upside
That's
down.
if we look at levels, and that's the way
Yeah.
we think, though. and
Yeah.
that's
But,
interesting.
So, awakening.
Awakening, enlightenment. Awakened.
So, what are the now we've kind of probably come to a consensus on that. What are the pathways to awakening? What have you used? What have you used?
I'd like to say that everybody comes into this world equal, but I don't think that's the case.
I agree completely.
So, you know, we can look at that from a socioeconomic, we can look at it from a race, we can look at it from a locational space upon the earth.
Gender.
Gender.
But even then, I don't know if that matters, because you could still place yourself in one of the worst positions and come out of it.
Sure.
But I
you-
think it's more to do with the
So-
amount of other karmic life
Yeah,
stuff
so that's
where
the stuff,
where you're
yeah.
able to then now
Deal
wake
with
up
that.
to
Was
whatever.
Is it only because you've done all that work before you're able to do the really hard lesson?
But not only that, awakening, in
Awakening
this,
the hard stuff.
How many
'Cause
didn't
that's the catalyst
happen,
to really.
and then we'll do over again.
Oh yeah, all the time.
All the time. So I'm just saying it's,
Yeah.
it's
And then you have the concept of old souls. So some souls are technically older and have had done a lot more work. So possibly when they come to this space and time, which with the other discussion about time, have done a shitload more work.
potentially, but even then you can dig yourself holes, and if there's levels, go backwards in a long way. And they've got, even if you're old, you can get lost. Even if you're a wanderer from other systems, you can still come back here and get dug down for.
Okay.
Well, you look at Jesus; he was a wanderer.
Hmm.
I think he had a pretty shit time when he was here.
Yeah, but
By our standards, he probably thought it was fantastic.
maybe there were some that came and didn't find their
Yeah.
awakening and
Yeah.
pathway, and can, reincarnated here several times before they were did what they were supposed to do.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So, and that's a multiple amount of things whether it's being born in a race, gender, certain socioeconomic position, but
Yeah.
also what happened elsewhere.
So
So
try
sorry.
try to feel into your own awakening, and I think where I was.
that was the question. So
Sorry.
what are the
Moving.
things that you think have been the catalyst to you? Some of it would have been unconsciously done
Yeah.
to
Well,
become awake, and then you
totally.
went, oh, hang on, now I can actually consciously
Yep.
progress this
Yeah.
For sure.
awakening
I
awareness.
I believe that I had the seed of awareness that was quite well
Yes.
planted and watered.
I agree.
Okay, so that's what you were saying. You already came with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I concur
The
with
parents
me.
that I chose to come into, my father would sit down and do ESP exercises with me. He would show
Wow.
me books about the Bermuda Triangle, unexplained events, ETs, UFOs. He spoke to me about the ascended masters. So this was my
Upbringing.
upbringing, and I just thought, okay, that's what. Isn't this what everybody?
Yeah.
This must be how this is. So that was sort of the imprinting stage.
Yep.
Maybe that was part of the watering and the cultivating of the seed
Yep.
of searching.
Yep.
Yeah.
Maybe, and then from there. And being born in the Philippines, living in Australia, not really being accepted in the Philippines or in Australia, created its own cell division within self and created its own catalyst to then come to a search of, if I'm not accepted there and I'm not accepted there, where can I be accepted?
Yeah.
So that turned inward because I couldn't find it outward. So I was looking for connection, basically. And I couldn't find the connection externally, and it sort of forced me inwards, and that's when I then started to look at my Eastern roots, so through Taoism, Buddhism. I looked into Hinduism, so a lot of Eastern, and even Catholicism. So the Judaism. I looked at Rastafarians. I was looking. So there was that thing. One thing that I do remember as a child that really got my those two shows. One was Monkey,
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
yeah, and the other one was
Same.
Hitchhiker's Guide to the
Yeah.
Galaxy.
It's cool.
Yeah, and it just opened it up, and I went, wow, this is amazing. I just loved that. So then that was then the search. So I think I was just in. What's the guy? He talks about the hero's journey.
Finding Joe. Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
The guy who came
The book's
up with
Finding Joe.
Finding Joe, Banks, I don't know what his name was, but he came up with this concept of the hero's journey that seems to be prevalent throughout
Story.
every culture.
And through all our Marvel comics.
Yes, and through all of the indigenous cultures that they go out and, they would,
It's the initiation.
expand, and then they come back and they bring that stuff back to the community, and they say, oh, look what I found. But ultimately what they found was themselves. Moby Dick, those types of things. So I think I then went out on the hero's journey, and the hero's journey was really the path to awakening. And I think that I'd like to say that's inherent in all of us. I don't know, because I don't know all of us. But what I do know is that was the pathway for me.
I think it is inherent, but some
Yes.
people will come up against the wall and
Yes.
choose not to climb it.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's easier back here in comfort,
Yep.
even though it's not comfortable.
Just wasn't this time.
Yeah.
And, I guess, cannabis was a big thing for me that opened up altered states of consciousness, opened up things, different types of thinking processes. that
Absolutely.
took time, but also created addiction,
Yeah.
so it had its dark side as well.
But that's its own catalyst as
That's
well.
its own catalyst as well. And then to be able to come back from that while continuing to search what I'd found in those journeys, in a sense. And then probably more recently, psilocybin has been probably the icing on the cake, because all of this stuff that I've felt to be true and felt in my heart to know is truth, the psilocybin allowed that experience to be consolidating.
Yep.
Oh yes, of course.
Yep.
And in essence, it was only showing me that part of myself that was existent already.
Yep.
Whether that is truth or that's just my own experience.
Yep.
But that's my own awakening.
I find it interesting because that whole journey was mine as well. Take away the Philippines and but mine was, Catholic, this, that, and the other, fear-based facades, and me going, this isn't where I belong, running off searching, but doing all the same stuff in essence, yeah.
The
And
hero's journey is pretty well
The
the
hero's
same.
journey,
It's just a different
internal
place,
looking.
different place.
I used stuff, and you get to the points where you're asking questions. So you are, starting that process of unlearning, unstripping, awakening, and we've ended up in the same space and time, based on the very similar journey. It'd be fascinating to work out.
Be interesting to track it.
Yeah. But I feel then there's a similar pathway that most of us would take to be here. Those little catalysts might look a little bit different to each of us, but they're very similar in essence, how it would make us feel or why we would search for this.
So, what was your journey? What is your journey?
What was my journey? So I grew up going to church as well, Anglican stuff, but I always had this interest in Aboriginal culture. Always had it. And we used to read, my parents actually as kids had, I remember the books vividly, Aboriginal Dreamtime stories. And it always sparked my interest, and I loved Thor and
Mm.
all those gods of different types compared to that.
Yes.
And then I remember when we moved to Broken Hill, I said to my ex-wife, I said, we're living the wrong way, we should be living like the Aboriginals. She goes, you're a fucking kook, blah, blah, blah. And then I discovered alcohol. And that was probably kind of another way of numbing it all out until the point where, I was never looking back, there's different kinds of alcoholics, but I was always a weekend binger. And then when I split with my ex-wife, it was like, well, fuck, I can do whatever I want now. And that was the catalyst, because then it started hurting. And that was the catalyst to go, oh, there's more to life here, what the fuck's the go? What's going on here? And then I started down the rabbit hole again. And I was always interested in extraterrestrials, always watched, I loved X-Files. I loved X-Files, and my ex-wife used to go, this is bullshit. I'm like, no, there's truth to this. Loved it, used to sit outside and look to the skies and go, I'm going to see one, that sort of stuff. And then also, when I
realised you are one. Anyway.
Yeah, well, this is true. And then also starting to see my youngest daughter talk to spirits. You know, hey, something's going on here, and then, you know, starting to have ghost experiences, and, you know, you can see the trickle feed as you start to shift your vibration, and as you start to question more. And it's like, you know, one of the things Aaron Abke goes, it's desire. When you desire to connect as much as you want, more than anything else, to connect to the spirit, it'll happen.
And the synchronicities come, and then it'll.
Yeah, and some people is like that, but he says 80% of everyone, it's a slow burn. I think a lot of people want that, but there's no lesson in that. There's not as much of a lesson in that.
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't have all the knowledge I have from searching and reading and watching to then be able to sit here and talk to it and explain it to people.
And that's exactly right. I'm finding that knowledge accumulation is then not only for
yourself,
our journey, but it's actually being able to explain and open other people to it as well. You're planting seeds and
I think for I'm trying not to make this egoic, but the talent for me is like at work. Like, I don't have an IT degree, but the brilliance that I have to bring to it is that I'm able to communicate with people on this level. And I think that's what I can do with this. People go, I don't understand. I go, okay, blah, blah, blah. They go, oh, that makes sense now. It's, to want a better word, dumbing it down or making the language simple. Speaking to the person who's in front of me.
Well, you're translating from one place or thing to the next.
Yeah, because I've had people watch a video like Lumdas or someone, and it's, or even singing can be a bit like that. He's up here and you go, okay, I get that. And they go, what does he mean? You go, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so that's part of that journey as well for me. So yeah, it's actually just the last week I started really looking back and go, wow, what a tapestry, what an amazing journey. And then to think, you know, some people would have given up. Some people would have gone, fuck, this is too hard. I'll keep drinking.
I was going to say,
I'll keep drinking and drink myself into the grave, or find something else, or check out. But I didn't, and if I hadn't, you know,
and
that's the hero's journey. I'll look back at it. Because it was actually funny the other day, just like a week ago, I said to someone, you should watch the hero's journey. And I started watching it again, and the Gold Buddha story came out. I went, oh, thanks for the reminder, universe. That's where I've been. I'm kind of starting to feel like
Joseph Banks.
Yes, just a couple of pieces of that concrete still stuck on the Gold Buddha.
Yeah, it's always been there.
Yeah.
And it's that remembering, it's the trimming, the chipping off.
And then maybe the gold comes off and it's a crystalline structure, or a
diamond,
diamond,
or it's just light. You know, I think that's
so that's that continual. Okay, let's continue.
Of course, and as we spoke about it, sacred masculinity, you continue to go through eternity. You know, returning to the Godhead or whatever that is.
So I don't just go, now I can sit on top of Mount Neil Zen, because the journey is now to share that with people.
Even then, you know, to remain in that high vibration, I'm suggesting to people around me now, at this point in time, I'm operating at a really good frequency and it's very clear, and I'm giving you this stuff, and you know, it's really good, it's really good, but very shortly I'm going to forget, and I'm going to say or move into a moment which is, can you please remind me in that moment and help me? And it's like I'm saying, we've got to just keep each other's backs in together, remembering, unstripping, or, you know, trying to remind ourselves. Stay here with me. Get rid of that.
Well, and the other thing I'm finding is that as my vibration's rising, there's people I don't want to be around. So, and I was talking to someone about this the other day.
So if you haven't seen Ian for a while,
it could be that. But then I realised that the challenge for me is to stay in that high vibration and bring them with me.
Beautiful, right?
Because that's the ultimate challenge. Abraham Hicks talks about that. The challenge is to stay there and not lower yourself. Because what most of us do is we go, I'll come back down to them.
Beautiful.
So they can feel okay.
Yeah, so talking about this with...
rather than I'm here. How about you, even if I get you to nudge out of your comfort zone a bit, it's going to be
a guy at work,
everybody's
who's
benefit.
Losing his energy because he keeps coming down to them and giving it away. And I'm saying, hey, how do you... So, no, you got to stay here, and sometimes you got to find that moment where you can help elevate them and not allow them to suck it out of you.
But it's also sometimes to go, I can't do any more here, and walk
as
away.
Well. Yeah. But it's like everyone's different in that place.
Oh, it's past 4:30. 4:33.
Oh, 33.
Sorry, shouldn't be coming out. Do a shot.
Which
Yeah,
is
Philly deep
not what they
potatoes.
say very much. Irishmen hate it.
I know. Chucked away, tally ho, toodle pip, governor.
That's English,
It's my
isn't it?
past lives coming back.
Well, I was just thinking before, maybe, I think we did a thing one time and you went into a tribe in a cave and whatever.
In Canada, actually, which is where my daughter ended up.
You said it was in Canada.
And my family
I
had,
thought it, but maybe
was it
is it?
Canada? It was cold.
I think it was the States. You said. Well, you said North America,
Yes.
but was it North America?
It was North America.
Definitely
yeah.
wasn't Australia Aboriginal.
No. It was cold.
cool.
Yeah.
Alright.
And then my tribe had.
Passed away.
Yeah, had left
Yeah,
or
yeah, yeah.
whatever, or
Yeah, yeah.
disappeared. I'd come
Crazy.
back to the campsite and
Mm.
like, where is everyone?
Yeah, right. Okay.
Yes.
I was just
didn't-
inquiring into that now, if it was Aboriginal or not, but no. Well, it might have been
No.
Aboriginal there,
But
not
see,
Aboriginal
I had
here.
this discussion with someone the other day. I said we're all originally Aboriginal some
True.
way,
Exactly. Yeah.
and if you're born in Australia, aren't you technically Indigenous to here?
Well,
Because if you believe in the idea that you're connected to the land where
Yeah,
you're born,
for sure.
and even JJ was talking about this the other day. He says if you want to reset your circadian rhythms, you go back to where you're born because that's
Yes.
where your body is connected to the earth.
Yeah.
And I always feel better when I come back to Townsville. It's where I was
Right.
born.
Yeah. Well, we may have had custodians of land for a certain amount of time with a structure, but yeah, definitely we're all part of Mother Earth.
Yeah.
You know.
And if you look at the science, which is another bit of science that's been covered up, so the way they track our DNA is through our mothers, and it's on the mitochondrial DNA. And what they do is they look at the mutations and how many, and the least mutated
yeah. Right.
mitochondrial DNA is actually in Aboriginal
Yep.
women in Australia.
Yep.
So there's a lot of stuff that's coming out now, and I'm learning this through grandmothers.
Yeah. Right.
They are the oldest culture.
Yeah. Right.
It's just for some reason being covered up.
Yeah. Right.
And like the rock paintings here, they're carbon dated to, like there's rock paintings way up the cliff in the Flinders Ranges in South Australia, and they're like with shells in them. Like, okay, these people were living here when the water was really high. That's a fucking long time ago. Okay, well, that's older than anywhere else in the world. So
Mm.
yeah, and that's why they believe that they were the. And I kind of tend to agree with them. That sits right with me. And,
Which is
that's why they're because of the oldest culture and all their song lines and everything.
nice
which
and all.
was- Yeah.
Moving forward though too. Yeah, it's interesting. Where do we go from here?
Who knows? That's
Find
the fun journey.
find these portals and these way lines and
I have been
connect-
told, I have been told where one is.
connect
Not
locally.
exactly. No. In Australia, yeah.
Oh yeah.
But not locally.
Yep.
And it's about everyone thinks the ley lines are the important ones. It's actually the tesseract lines, which are different energy lines compared. The ley lines are just related to the longitude, latitude kind of stuff. Tesseract's actually the energy lines across the planet Earth.
Yeah, it makes more sense.
Yeah, and then there's another one. I think it's the celestial line. So they talk about all that, and then so the other thing they talk about is there's the Great Galactic Sun, which all the other suns feed off. So if you look at it like a brain,
right.
so there's a Great Galactic Sun
Yeah.
in the middle, which we all
Yep.
expanded from, and then they're all feeding information. So as I was talking about the database the other day.
Yep.
We feed to the sun feeds to its major sun in the
Yeah,
middle
yeah.
of our galaxy, and then it feeds to the major sun, which is
Yeah,
the Great
right.
Galactic Sun.
Yes.
That kind of makes sense because
All the energy is
Yeah.
channeling back to the one source.
And that's why it's continually going, okay, we're going to do this experiment.
yeah.
Oh, that sounds like good. Just keep us updated.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
I'm gonna write a new program
Yeah.
and see what happens.
Yeah, we've had a couple of viruses go
And
through.
you think about it, it's the same as a computer
Yeah.
program.
Yeah, the
I'm gonna run it, and then I'm
Well,
gonna
it's a replication.
compile it,
Yeah.
and there was an error there. Come back. All right, I'll rewrite that.
And it helps me see then, like if
And
peop-
yeah.
all these different people are jumping in from whatever systems, it kind of helps me explain.
Well, yeah, we'll put a new program in
Mm.
because that code didn't work.
Mm.
Okay, this is I guess you can't really say it didn't work, but it's about evolving and improving.
That's right. What was the result from
Yeah. And okay, well, we need to throw a
new-
bit more code in.
The new experience.
Yeah.
How would it work
And
now?
that's why they're saying the song lines are all changing.
Mhm.
Mm.
That's what we've been teaching because the Earth's shifting, everything's changing. They talk about
It's pretty
2012.
pretty cool
Yeah,
time.
it's a
eh?
great time to be
In this place.
here. We can use the word here. Am I here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now.
For sure.
Now.
Great time to be now.
Now,
Yeah.
great time to be in the now.
Moment. To
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah.
So that was Awakening. What's the wrap up? How do you do this? Thanks.
Thank you everyone today to listening to. Thank you everyone today for listening to our dribble. Welcome back next time when we talk about the new Earth.
New Earth.
Come back and tune in then.
Cheers.
See
Thank
ya.
you.